Greetings. Today we begin the final installment of 8 verses, the 22nd set. Psalm 119 verses 169 through 176. And we've simply entitled it, A Future with the Word. The psalmist begins in verse 169, Let my cry come near before thee, O Lord. Give me understanding according to thy word. Let my supplication come before thee. Deliver me according to thy word. My lips shall utter praise when thou hast taught me thy statutes. My tongue shall speak of thy word, for all thy commandments are righteousness. Let thine hand help me, for I have chosen thy precepts. I have longed for thy salvation, O Lord, and thy law is my delight. Let my soul live, and it shall praise thee, and let thy judgments help me. I have gone astray like a lost sheep. Seek thy servant, for I do not forget thy commandments. In the very first section of 8 verses, David exclaimed in verse 5, Oh, that my ways were directed to keep thy statutes. And as he is concluding this psalm in the final section, he says in verse 171, My lips shall utter praise when thou hast taught me thy statutes. The prospect for his future, as it relates to God's word and his performance of it, seemed to be the primary focus of this final section. David has spoken of past experiences, his request for current needs to be addressed, and of his faith for his future as it was dependent upon God's word. He says in verse 169, Let my cry come near before thee, O Lord. Give me understanding according to thy word. Let me come near. This word is used 259 times in the Old Testament. Its only other use in Psalm 119 was in verse 150, where it spoke of the wicked drawing near to mischief, very far from God's word. So I think David indicates we have a choice. We can draw near to God's word, or we can draw near to those who are very far from God's word. In the 88th Psalm in verse 2, he said, Let my prayer come before thee. Incline thine ear unto my cry. Jeremiah 8:9, The wise men are ashamed. They are dismayed and taken. Lo, they have rejected the word of the Lord. And what wisdom is in them? What a great question. If one rejects God's word, then what basis does he have for possessing any real and valid wisdom? What was it David wanted to approach God and to be received by him? It's personification that's being used. He said his cry, his shout for joy or a shout for grief, whichever would fit the context, positively or negatively. He said before. This word is the two regular words regarding the redemptive name of God and then actually being in his presence. David's request, his personification, was that his cry would come into the very presence of his Redeemer. Sometimes we forget the great privilege that we've been given. Hebrews calls it boldness to fly to the throne of grace in our time of need. But such was not always the case. The word understanding appears for the 10th and final time in this psalm, in this final section, and it refers to mental apprehension in its 162 Old Testament uses. Back in verse 144, he said, The righteousness of thy testimonies is everlasting. Give me understanding, and I shall live.